Welcome to Onboarding Practices that Empower Members, a webinar for leaders in the AmeriCorps VISTA program. Leaders are uniquely positioned to provide some extra support outside of formal orientation and training provided by sponsoring organizations during the onboarding period. This webinar looks at some specific areas of need for new members and offers practical tools and approaches leaders can use to empower their members early in their service. I'm your host, Andy King, Senior Training Specialist at AmeriCorps VISTA headquarters. And our presenter is Jenny Moore, who currently serves as Director of Communications and Special Projects for the nonprofit Vision Action Network, a convening organization based in Washington County, Oregon. Jenny has over 20 years of experience in communications, project management, and facilitation for nonprofits, higher education, and government services, including 6 years teaching online courses here for AmeriCorps VISTA on volunteer mobilization. So welcome, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm super excited to have this opportunity to talk about the tools and strategies that can support and empower VISTA members throughout the onboarding process. And I really appreciate being here with everyone. I just want to give a quick explanation that I am going through a little bit of a cough. So if I pause and cough in the next hour, please excuse that. And I'll do my best to not interrupt myself. Okay, let's get started. So today's webinar is all about building your toolkit to support members during the onboarding process and to give you some strategies and templates that you can use to help empower members as they progress through onboarding and beyond. By the end of today's webinar, you will be able to describe ways to help members identify and meet their own individual needs from the start of service, to describe ways to help members identify their expectations of service and to navigate workplace norms, and describe practices leaders can use to help members connect with each other for support. Now, this session is just one small piece of the catalog of helpful and informative webinars available to you through the VISTA campus. I wanted to be sure to build on the concepts covered in the previous webinars about onboarding VISTAs. So I really encourage you to review some of those webinars in the section called Supporting VISTA Members to gain the most benefit from the interconnected ideas and information. For example, in the webinar Building and Supporting Remote Teams, presenter Kapila Wewegama shared, quote, "As a leader, we need to be fully aware of the support needs of our team members," unquote. Building awareness of your team members' needs will also help you empower them. So we'll explore some specific tools today that will help you do that. And in the webinar titled Supporting VISTA Member Wellbeing, presenter Ben Brubaker talked about the importance of supporting members holistically, considering the whole person, not just how they are interacting with their site and their VAD, but how are they doing emotionally, physically, and how are they affected by the world around them. He emphasized the need to set boundaries while supporting members, helping them understand that leaders are not counselors, nor are you supervisors. And finally, in 3 ways leaders support member onboarding, Ryan Fewens-Bliss and Samara Barath offered a wealth of information about how to help members adjust to living on their stipend and to navigate the workplace at their site. They also shared some critical information about the importance of honoring the community in which members serve, engaging with care, and avoiding what is sometimes called the nonprofit savior complex. So I really encourage you to check that out to learn more. Now, there are some concrete steps you can take to help support members and then go beyond support to empower them. The Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines empowerment as the act of giving somebody more control over their own life or the situation they are in. Some of the ways you can do this as a VISTA leader is to help members develop the skills of goal setting and self-reflection, and by helping members to assess their own needs and build the confidence in finding resources or asking for help meeting those needs. Today, we're going to focus on 3 areas of onboarding support for VISTAs and some tools and processes you can use to help move members from support to empowerment. The 3 areas of support we're going to delve in today are getting settled in the community, especially if members relocated to serve, and then adjusting to the living allowance, And then second, members often need some guidance to identify and possibly adjust their expectations of service and navigate their workplace norms. And finally, leaders can facilitate member-to-member connections. Now, we know that members are often relocating to a new town or geographic region. It may also be the first time they are entering a professional or office workplace. They may find that the realities of their site and their daily work are not what they expected, and they may struggle to make connections and feel supported both personally and professionally. Now, this isn't news to you, most likely, because you may have experienced this yourself, but preparing ahead to address these support areas can help members avoid disillusionment, disappointment, and burnout. Let's look at each of these areas and the role VISTA leaders can play in providing support and empowering members. First, let's take a deeper look at the area in which new members often need support, which is getting settled in the community and adjusting to living on the living allowance. I'll talk about why this is important, and then we'll look at some specific practices leaders can use to provide support in this area. Now, onboarding encompasses more than just the start of a member's service. Onboarding new members begins with recruiting candidates and could extend as far into the term of service as the third month. An essential phase in the process is the time between when members are notified of their selection and the time that they start. This is marked as retention in that middle box there on the screen. During member onboarding, members participate in VISTA member orientation and a formal on-site orientation and training in which the sponsoring organization orients them to the project and to the community. They explain their role, provide important knowledge and information to get them started. But we know that there are many other things new members need to thrive in their new role. Starting in the retention period and continuing through the first few weeks of service, leaders can help members build confidence around learning and navigating a new community, or even learning new ways to engage in their hometown if they're serving there. Members may face both the logistical concerns of moving and the challenge of adjusting to the culture and structure of a community. Those who are serving in their own community have the opportunity to experience and get to know their town in a very different way. In all cases, members can benefit from assessing their own needs as they relate to the community and the year ahead. They can discover resources to meet those needs, and they can share what they find with other members on their team. By reaching out to the candidates during the pre-service stage, leaders can share tools and initiate processes so the candidate can become empowered to identify their own needs early in the onboarding process, even before their first day. That will give members time to find and access resources to meet at least some of their own needs in advance of starting service. Or if they can't find what they need, they can ask for help. And reaching out to members before they start will allow them to feel more connected to the community they will be serving and to other members, giving them more sources of support right off the bat. To facilitate these outcomes, VISTA leaders may be able to suggest strategies for getting settled and adjusting, as well as offer processes and tools to assess needs. And so now we have a question for you that Andy will explain.
All right, so as Jenny mentioned, we'd like to get your thoughts on a question. And for this activity, we're going to use the chat. The question is, what are some needs members may have when relocating or adjusting to the living allowance? These could be things that you've experienced yourself, or perhaps things that you've seen come up for your own members. So we're looking for your take on some of the things that members may need when they are relocating or adjusting to life on the living allowance. Please share your answer in the chat, and so that everyone can see your response, please be sure that you're sending it to everyone before you click submit or enter. All right, so we're seeing a whole range of responses here in the chat. Some of them related to, for folks relocating, the primary need there is around finding housing, particularly safe and affordable housing. Others, practical needs related to living on a living allowance, affording things like utilities, right? Or getting their food needs met, and working out transportation so that they've got an affordable way to get to the office and back, or get around. Health benefits mentioned a couple of times here. And then medical and healthcare is another, whether it's finding providers that are participating in their plan, or just learning how to access healthcare if they haven't had to navigate that on their own before. And then overall budgeting. Budgeting came up, and it sounds like some of you are even offering budgeting workshops and other tools for your members there. So lots of variety of needs coming in here. Jenny, is there anything that you noticed about the responses we're seeing?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I mean, obviously housing and budgeting, finding food, affordable food options is all very common. And then there's some others like finding friends, finding things to do in your community. Someone even mentioned finding housing that has proper like heating and cooling. And so I think, we're going to see that there's a lot of commonalities to what Vistas need when they're getting settled in a new community. And then there are going to be some very specific needs based on their geographic location, or the needs of each Vista could be somewhat different. So there's going to be both that sort of commonality and then some individual needs. And I think the tools that we're going to look at next will help you with both addressing those sort of common needs, and also being able to work one-on-one with Vistas to find out what their specific needs are and help meet those. And so being able to reflect with them on their needs is a key first step to helping them feel really empowered to be able to meet their needs and find ways to meet those needs. And that's some of the strategies and tools that we're going to look at next. So one of the first ways that you as leaders can help members take ownership of their experience is to provide tools for them to assess and meet their own needs. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know, right? And sometimes they don't know they have a need, but they don't know where to get that need met. And we just saw in the chat that you have a lot of insight on the types of needs that come up for members adjusting to a new community or to living on the stipend. And to help with this, I developed this informal tool that I called the Onboarding Needs Assessment, which can be used in a variety of ways. It's especially helpful for members moving into a new community. And the tool is included in your packet of resources for the webinar. So if you haven't downloaded that, please go ahead and do that now. This tool includes a list of categories and a number of important questions a member can answer to assess their current situation. There are sections on housing, transportation, like many of you mentioned, but also on things, family matters like childcare or school enrollment if Vistas have children. Sections to help them identify local restaurants and food access like grocery stores or maybe food pantries, financial needs such as locating banks, spiritual needs like finding a local place of worship, even pet needs like finding a local veterinarian, and of course, where and how to meet people, find friends, make connections in the community, etc. This is a great tool to share as you guide your members through their adjustment period. It can help members identify unanticipated needs, and it may also help them get a better understanding of the extent of their needs. Now, this tool can be used in a variety of ways. First, I would recommend emailing these questions, the onboarding needs assessment, to the Vistas as an attachment. And I would do that early in the onboarding process, when you can ask them to answer all the questions that apply to them and that they're able to answer. And then you can consider how best to review this tool together with your Vistas. It could be helpful to hold a team meeting to guide members through the process of assessing their own needs and begin to identify the resources to meet those needs. Conducting this as a team meeting achieves the additional purpose of building trust and a sense of belonging among Vista members. You can ask members to share what they learned from their assessment that surprised them, for example, or what helped them the most, or just share a few of their answers with the group. Or as part of a larger meeting, you can ask members to break into groups of 2 or 3 to discuss their assessments and share their findings, just in their small groups, either in online breakout rooms like on Zoom or in person. You can also choose to review the completed assessment with each VISTA one-on-one and provide more individual feedback and guidance. This doesn't preclude the group meeting review. It can simply be a way to dig deeper and help advise members one-on-one with their individual needs. You can ask members to share their completed assessment or parts of it in an online platform like Google Docs or Slack so that other members of your cohort can benefit from each other's ideas and discoveries. And this is especially helpful, of course, if members are serving in the same town or geographic region. So as you can see, there are several options for using this onboarding needs assessment, and you can choose to use the combination that best fits your needs and the needs of your team. Now, another strategy that is effective at empowering members to identify their own needs and also encouraging team building is something called the reciprocity ring. This is a fun exercise to practice asking for help and giving help. It sounds simple, but this is actually a great exercise with proven results. It was invented by sociologist and Professor Wayne Baker and his wife, Cheryl Baker, who's the CEO of Humax. And it was popularized in the book, Give and Take, A Revolutionary Approach to Success by Adam Grant. In the packet of resources for the webinar that you should have, you're going to find a couple of websites that explain in more detail how to use the reciprocity ring. But this is really a simple exercise that involves gathering a group of people virtually or in person, and then each person makes a request to the group for something they need. It could be a service or an item or a connection or help with something. And it's something they cannot provide or find for themselves. The other members of the group then use their collective resources, ideas, knowledge, and connections to help fulfill each of the requests. This tool has been used to help people find housing or commute buddies, to complete a project, to learn a new skill, to land a dream job, and all sorts of things. It's not a new idea, of course. It just provides the framework for people to ask for what they need and to contribute what they can to others, which I think could work particularly well for members. The benefits of the reciprocity ring are that those who use it learn to identify what they need, and then it gives them practice asking others to help meet those needs. It taps into the collective knowledge, resources, and connections of the group. And the bonus, of course, is that the reciprocity ring also builds team cohesion. The process of giving or receiving help ultimately builds personal connections between members, which is another one of our support areas that we'll be covering later. Okay, here's a couple of ideas on how to use this tool. The reciprocity ring could be a great follow-up to a meeting after you cover the onboarding needs assessment. You could even ask each member to email you in advance of a meeting with one key need or request, and then you could send that list out to the team so they could do the research or come up with solutions ahead to share during the meeting. The tool may work best after the team has already established a rapport, but it has success with groups coming together with no prior knowledge of each other, so it really could be effective either way. This can also be an activity to use later in the service year as a way for members to request help with a particular problem or need they are facing at their site. Okay, and then now we have another opportunity for you to share ideas and feedback.
All right, so this activity asks, in addition to the ones that Jenny just shared, what are some other strategies or tools that you can think of to help members identify and meet their own needs? So again, please share your answers in the chat and be sure to send to everyone. All right, so we've got a few suggestions and ideas coming in here. First off, sharing resources, especially among members that have similar VADs or similar tasks or responsibilities. Another is to create some kind of a shared discussion page, maybe in Workspace or Slack or Teams or somewhere, where they can share resources as well as a needs assessment. I like this one about having former members share things that they've done in the past, so sort of building on what's already been created. A number of you are talking about building some kind of a channel or shared space where they can put out their needs for each other. Another idea is to have actually a discussion around values and then how the resources can help keep them true to their values and goals, or maybe identify what is missing that they need. And then another suggestion, making sure that they know where resources are located. So, so sharing out those kinds of tips and things with the members of your team. And in terms of being able to support each other, having everyone share their contact information is a great way to draw those connections and foster peer support. So a lot of good responses coming in. If you still in the middle of typing yours, please go ahead and submit it. But Jenny, did anything stand out to you here?
Yeah, I think, I love all of these ideas, and especially, finding ways to create a shared space that everyone could sort of share their ideas, whether that's like a Google Doc, or maybe you use Slack or Workspace, whatever sort of channels you're using. We're going to talk more later on about buddying people up and sharing resources collectively, and how important that is, because again, like I mentioned, sharing these resources is important for people to be able to identify and meet their own needs, but it's also important in terms of building those connections and relationships and understanding that, we're in a collective space. We're all working toward similar values and similar goals. And part of this resource sharing is also sharing that kind of information and developing those kinds of relationships and really tapping into like the common reasons why the Vistas are here in the first place and what they're working on. I think all of that is really important to understand that all of this is really connected. Yeah, being open and meeting people in the community. I love all of these. This is great. Okay, and then I have a couple of additional tools and resources that I want to share with how to identify and meet their own needs, and sharing these kind of helpful resources can be really critical, especially when we're talking about empowering people. We should really consider how much people rely on technology in their daily lives, like in our everyday lives, and how we can benefit from thoughtful use of that technology. And one way to do this is to encourage members to use free apps for budgeting, which everybody mentioned earlier in the chat, finding food and housing, and all sorts of other reasons. And so I've started a list of apps that's also available in the packet of resources that's included for the webinar. This is a list that is a tool that you could share with your members, again, in a group sharing, and ask them to contribute to it and add to it, add their own resources or feedback. These apps are great for helping members find the resources they need to meet their own needs and to connect with their communities as well. Now, as Andy mentioned earlier, these are just examples of the types of tools that might be useful in supporting members, and their inclusion on this list does not constitute an endorsement by AmeriCorps or the VISTA program. So please keep that in mind when considering whether to use one of them. But some of the apps that I mentioned for budgeting, Half Dollar, Mint, and Good Budget are all easy to use budgeting apps that can help members manage their finances. So they offer different features such as customizable elements or linking to bank accounts. And then food, of course, is a big cost category for members. And so apps like Too Good to Go, Olio, and Karma can connect people to restaurants and businesses that have surplus food to share. These, of course, can be less predictable than other sources, but they can be a great way to supplement weekly groceries. Basket is an app that uses crowdsourcing to compare grocery store prices in your area. And some restaurant apps offer discounts or occasional freebies just for signing up. So that's a good option to mention as well. And then in the category of housing and furnishings, Free Cycle, Buy Nothing, and Free Stuff section of Craigslist are sources of free things, just as you would expect from the name. And you can search what's being offered, or you can post a need that you have. And then Nextdoor and Facebook Marketplace are places where people sell all sorts of items locally, and they also post free items. And of course, serving with the VISTA program doesn't mean members shouldn't have fun. People brought up earlier making friends. And so Meetup and Facebook events or groups are great places to find free or affordable local activities and people with similar interests. And you can also find free online and in-person events on Eventbrite. And then there's an app called Gold Star, which is a discount ticket app for events, and it's available in most major metropolitan areas. So those are just some ideas that you could share. Now we've covered the first area of getting settled and adjusting to the living allowance. We're going to move on to the second area of focus for this webinar and look at practices and tools that leaders can recommend or use with members to help them adjust their expectations of service and navigate their workplace norms. Now, starting a new job or service position can bring a lot of unknowns and sometimes even disappointments if the reality is different than what we expected. We've heard from VISTA leaders that some common issues for members include things like members finding that their assignment does not always meet their expectations, that they have too much or too little work, that they are struggling with the supervisor relationship, or they may struggle to adjust to the workplace norms or encounter other challenges. All of this can often lead members to feel frustrated or confused. So addressing these topics early will help members feel prepared and empowered, and then giving them some of the tools they need to succeed in their first few weeks at their site. Members who successfully adapt to their site will be prepared to assess workplace expectations, what is expected of them, and what they should expect from their supervisor and others. VISTA members will also understand the value of adjusting their own expectations to their site's needs. VISTA leaders can facilitate discussions and share strategies for helping members with all of their support needs. And members will benefit from reflection on their workplace and actively seek to identify and understand workplace norms and cultures. VISTA leaders can provide guidance on identifying workplace norms, goal setting, strategies for communication, and more. Now, we want to get started on this topic with a question for everyone.
All right, so this question is based on your own experience. So what are some things that you wished you had known before you first started service? These could be small practical things like how to navigate the shared drive at your office, or bigger, more global things like what your supervisor expects, how to prepare for one-on-one meetings and things like that. So I'll give you a moment to get your thoughts into the chat. All right, so we've got responses coming in now. So some of the things that you wished you had known, or maybe that folks had shared with you, that VISTA would be full-time and how limited the income is, and how little time there is actually for another job or earning other income. Being able to connect with other VISTAs in the area or throughout the network. Goal setting, whether it's personal, professional areas, who to go to for different things at the organization. Jeremy says, I wish I've known about all those apps. I'll definitely share those. Great. So some of the squishy or harder stuff to figure out, like office dynamics, and how to navigate some of the expectations right around the workplace and interacting with others, especially supervisor, expectations about the VAD and the actual requirements for the position. Wow, lots of great ideas coming in. So keep those coming. And I'm going to turn to Jenny and see if there was anything that stood out for you.
Yeah, I think what I see is a lot of what I'm looking at is some of the things that we just covered, like adjusting to living on your allowance and adjusting to the community and finding all the resources that you need just to live. And then definitely being able to adjust to the expectations of the site, understanding the relationship dynamics at your work site with your supervisor. And so what I see is that how much you can use as a VISTA leader, your own experiences and the lessons that you've learned to help guide and coach new members. And then in this section, luckily, believe it or not, we have some tools and strategies that can help you with this. So let's get started on those. All right. One great exercise that you can use, and you can use this throughout the onboarding process, is called the hopes and fears activity. Now, this was developed by educators, and it's most often used now by groups who are tackling the same project, but it can be adapted easily and work really well for members in VISTA to share and open up about their hopes and fears, which really are their expectations about their site or their year of service ahead. A simple format here is to use a virtual or an in-person whiteboard divided into a section for hopes and one for fears, and then have members post their hopes and fears on the real or virtual whiteboard. Then as a group, you can begin to cluster common themes and ideas, and then discuss strategies to achieve the hopes and to deal with the fears. And you can even keep a record of this and then revisit it later to review whether the hopes and fears materialized or not. Members can benefit from this activity, the hopes and fears activity, by identifying and verbalizing the expectations they have for their site and for service that they may not have even known that they had. Being able to discuss the strategies for achieving hopes and then dealing with the fears can help them learn to manage their own expectations. And it can build adaptability and resilience to help them cope with change or disappointment. The bonus, of course, is that it's a great team building exercise and it helps members feel more connected. Now, I have another tool that can help members prepare for, adjust to, and succeed at their site. And somebody mentioned this earlier in the chat, and that's a work journal. Using a work journal has a number of benefits. The simple act of writing down goals has been proven to increase one's chances of accomplishing them. And writing down any worries or concerns has been shown to lower anxiety and stress. The journaling has also been shown to have many other benefits, like developing mindfulness and sparking creativity. We've developed this work journal template for you to share with your members, and this is in your packet, so make sure you look into your packet for this. It can be adapted in all sorts of different ways. Work journals can, for example, be an open-ended space just to record thoughts, plans, goals, and ideas, or it can be more directed and reflective structure. The format could be a notebook, a bullet journal, a Google Doc, or it could be integrated into a paper or digital calendar or a planner. Whatever format the user chooses, the template we provided was created specifically for VISTA members with prompts for expectation and goal setting, daily plans, and daily reflections, along with weekly or monthly reflections. It's a tool that you can share with members to use as it best suits their own needs. And right here on the screen, you're going to see some sample journal prompts that we've included, such as on my first day, and I apologize, I've lost my notes for this page. I hope to achieve, feel, learn, connect, strengthen. In the first week at my site, I hope to. And so these are some of the prompts that we've put together that would be for the very first type of prompts. But later in the journal, you're going to see prompts that would be more reflective for each day, for planning their year of service. And these are the types of prompts that can be shared with a group. So you could actually post this in a common space like a Slack channel and have people answer these together, or send out as an email and ask people to share, after I complete my year of service, I hope to be able to XYZ. And this is another way that the group can build connections and learn to manage their own expectations. And then, once again, there's a great opportunity to introduce and explore apps and technology that can encourage members to develop mindful workplace habits. So again, I'm going to remind you that the apps that we include on this list do not constitute an endorsement by AmeriCorps or the VISTA program, so please keep that in mind when considering whether to use one of them. But some of the apps for helping members adjust and adapt to their service site and navigate workplace norms include apps for journaling and goal setting, like Day One, which is a popular bare bones journaling app, Grid Diary, which shares pre-written or customized prompts and even includes inspirational quotes, an app called Reflection, which provides daily reflection prompts along with monthly and annual reviews. And for goal setting and accountability, there are apps like Habitica, which is a gamified, customizable to-do list. And then Coach Me, which allows you to set goals and interact with other users for encouragement and accountability. This is one that all team members could actually join and connect with each other within the app. And there are lots more apps out there. So as I've mentioned, this info is great to share with your team and ask members to contribute their own favorites and recommendations. Okay, and then now we've covered the topics of getting settled and adjusting to the living allowance and ways to identify and adjust expectations of service and navigate workplace norms. And we're going to move on to our final topic, which is focused on helping connect members to each other and finding support amongst their teammates. Now, all of the tools, processes, and resources we've covered so far had a bonus outcome or benefit of building connection among team members. But if you've started doing any or all of those, you'd be on their way to already building those connections. But we're going to spend a little bit more time going into a few specific ways to support member connection with each other. So our last area of focus are these strategies for connecting members to other members. Now, when members connect with other VISTA members and they're able to feel a sense of camaraderie and affinity, it can help them have a sense of belonging on the team and feel confident that they have a place to find resources to help them during the service year. VISTA leaders can provide team building exercises and opportunities to develop connections among team members. There are many ways you can help members feel connected and develop a sense of belonging on the team. And one way is to hold monthly or even more frequent meetings during which you can set aside time to complete activities such as the Reciprocity Ring or the Hopes and Fears, or games and other team building activities. Meetings that include elements of fun, team building, and discussion unrelated to work can build those personal connections, which can support VISTA motivation and help build resiliency. If members are in close proximity, you could organize a day of service to get everyone together for a group volunteer effort. If there are any AmeriCorps alumni chapters near your sites, you could connect your team members with other members and alumni in the region through an event or a meeting, for example. And then, of course, team building games like a scavenger hunt or team building bingo or trivia can be fun and an opportunity for the group to learn and get to know each other. Now, in the packet of resources, again, for the webinar, I'm sharing a couple of websites for team building activities that you can explore that are specifically helpful for creating deeper connections and for helping people get to know each other. So please visit that. And another team building tool can be personality or strengths tests like Clifton Strengths Finder, Myers-Briggs, or the Enneagram. You can find free versions of these types of tests online and have the members take them in advance of a meeting and then discuss the results all together or in pairs or small groups. Or it could be valuable to pair people to discuss what they learned and how it applies to their VISTA service. And then finally, there are a variety of ways to pair two members together for a buddy system or activity. So we can look at that a little bit more closely. A buddy system is an established onboarding and knowledge sharing method that's typically used to guide or orient new employees by assigning an experienced employee to be a buddy or a guide for a new employee. And of course, this model can work for members if you have some who are more experienced and some who are not. And you can pair the two members as buddies, and you can explain that the expectation is that the more experienced VISTA will be sort of an unofficial guide through the first few weeks or months of service. So it's time limited. The experienced member shares tips, tools, knowledge, and techniques they learned from previous experience with their buddy. If you implement a buddy system like this, you as a leader will want to make sure to be available to offer support to the experienced VISTAs as they navigate their buddy role. You can do this by scheduling regular individual or group check-ins with the buddies, the more experienced buddies, to see how things are going and if they need support. But even if everyone is starting at the same level of experience, you can focus on pairing people up to increase engagement in an informal buddy system. In meetings, you could group people into pairs to address a prompt together or have them sort of interview each other and tell the group what they learned. You could even send out assignments for a topic you would like pairs of members to research and present briefly at the next group meeting. Or you could assign teams of 2 for games or trivia so the members get to work together. Members in the same town could be paired up to do a sort of scavenger hunt to find resources in their community, which you could even use the onboarding needs assessment to facilitate that. Okay, and then next we have another question for you on the topic of building connections.
All right, so as Jenny mentioned, we do have another chat activity. For this one, we're wondering, in addition to those ideas that Jenny just mentioned, what are some other activities or tools that you've seen that can build connection between or among members? Please share your answer in the chat and make sure that it goes to everyone. After the session, I'm going to collect all the ideas generated here and I'll share them out with you. So what other activities or tools can help build connection among your members? All right, so it didn't take long. We've got a lot of ideas coming in already. Creating a group in teams where folks can share resources and ask questions of each other. One site here created a community of practice where they get together in small groups, talk more specific or rather talk about specific topics. Let's see, using the leadership compass. They do it for strengths and weaknesses, and then look for cross-member connections there. Doing icebreakers and meetings to help get to know each other. Group meetups and have everyone sharing their contact details. Doing a meet and greet, you can do that virtually or in person. Other fun things, right, like happy hour, corn maze, painting parties, book clubs, movie nights, coffee talk meetings, lots of great creative fun ideas there. And here's one that we used to talk a lot about a few years ago, not so many people do anymore, but I love seeing it. That is a newsletter, right? So it could be electronic, however you do it, but announcements, local events, things that are free or low cost, opportunities for folks to get together and work together or just relax together. And let's see, VISTAs who work in the county where I work get together on a regular basis, right? So just setting up something consistent that people can easily fall into. All great ideas, keep them coming. Like I said, I'm gonna collect all of those, I'll compile them, I'll put them in a document and I'll share them out after the webinar. Anything stand out here for you, Jenny?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is just the diversity of ways that you can really enhance and build connections between VISTA members. And I think one thing to do is just ask your members what they want to do. And of course, it doesn't always have to include the leader. As someone mentioned, you could meet up without the VISTA leader, but finding ways for them to collaborate on a project or do service in the community, and then just socialize. And then I love the idea of doing a newsletter and having different announcements, having the VISTAs themselves plan these get-togethers is a really great way for them to build those connections and also to sort of make them feel more empowered that they know how to connect in their communities and they are finding ways to help support each other. I think that's great. Absolutely.
All right. And I forgot to mention, I've also created on the VISTA campus in the VISTA Connect section, I've created a little discussion thread where we can continue to share ideas on ways to build these connections. So thanks, Misty, for putting the link there in the chat. And I encourage you all to click through there, or if you go to the Vista Connect section in the leaders area, you'll see this discussion topic on building connection. All right, so let's go ahead and move on.
Okay, and so once again, I have a list of apps that can help you promote connection and team building. And of course, as I've said before, this is just a sampling. So you can find all sorts of great tools like this out there, and your members may have ideas to share too. So it's great to ask them to contribute to this. So most of you are probably familiar with Slack, which is a messaging program that is designed for the workplace. And it has channels to chat and also direct messaging options. So this is a great way to connect online. It also has free integrations like Donut, which automatically connects users together in pairs every few weeks to get to know each other better. And then Trivia for Slack has free unlimited games for up to 6 people. Hey Taco is a function that facilitates peer-to-peer praise within Slack, which you can also do by creating a channel just for thanks and shout outs with your team members. Discord is another messaging platform that's similar to Slack, but it doesn't have the same kind of integrations. And Playmio is a free group games and activities app with lots of team building and trust games. And Kahoot allows you to create and play trivia and quiz games, which you can even ask your members to design and facilitate. All right, and then we have one last question for you.
Yeah, that's right. And this question is the one that gives you a chance to see how well you've been following along. You should see the pop-up poll on your screen now. And the question is, which of the following is a practice to help new members adapt to workplace norms? Is it a work journal, service project, apps like Karma and Mint, or the Reciprocity Ring activity? So go ahead, make your selection there in the pop-up and then click submit. I'll give you just a moment or two to respond. Looks like about half of you have responded. I'll give you, let's say, 15 more seconds to review the options there and get your response in. All right, we'll go ahead, wrap up the poll. We'll close that off and then publish the results. See how well you did. All right, so looks like a split. Like half of you said work journal and 38% said reciprocity ring. Let's look at the correct answer. And the correct answer is A. Whoops, it didn't show up there on the screen, but it's A, a work journal. And the work journal prompts the new member to reflect on their expectations, remember? And then they can explore how they might align with norms at the project site. So thank you for participating in that poll. Good job. And next up, Jenny has a quick recap and some other resources to share.
Sure, yeah. And I would also say I can understand why the reciprocity ring activity could be a part of that answer, because if you're asking for help in sort of adjusting to your workplace or questions that you have maybe specifically related to that, that could feed into the reciprocity ring activity for sure. But the workplace journal is especially helpful as that reflection tool to help people get adjusted to their workplace and also continuously reflect on their expectations and their goals, and sharing that is especially helpful for that particular process. Okay, so today we have covered quite a bit in the last hour. We've gone over some strategies to help Vistas evaluate their own needs and to find ways to meet those needs. And we've reviewed tools and strategies to help members adjust to a new workplace and manage their own expectations. And then we talked about the importance of building connection among members, and we looked at some ways to do that with your teams. Overall, we've identified quite a few tools and strategies, including several apps that can empower members to build resilience, manage their needs, and have a successful service year. Please review the packet of resources that we provided for you and then implement whatever you feel will be most helpful. You're going to find the onboarding needs assessment, examples of the reciprocity ring, and the hopes and fears exercise. You'll find a template for a work journal, a list of apps and websites for team building, and a few other options. And so I'd like to just thank you so much for sharing all your ideas and additional resources. And I hope that this has been helpful for you today. And before we sign off, we'd like to hear from you with any final questions that you might have.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Jenny, for such an informative presentation. And as you just mentioned, we do want to get to questions from our audience. But before we get to questions, I want to invite all of you to share your ideas, what you thought about this session by completing a short evaluation of the webinar. Your feedback will be really important for Jenny, and it'll be helpful for me as I'm always looking for ways to make these sessions more useful for you and for other leaders. The survey is probably already open in your browser window behind Zoom, but if not, the link is also available there in the chat. So it is time to see what questions you may have. And for the Q&A session, we're going to use the chat feature again. So some of you have already offered some questions, but if you haven't had a chance yet, then now's your chance to just drop your question there in the chat, and I'll queue them up for Jenny. So first off, I want to give a little hat tip to Marie, who earlier had shared that there is a webinar, on-demand webinar for VISTA members about creating a work plan based on the VAD. And earlier I dropped the link to that into the chat, but it is there in the My Professional Development Learning Path on the VISTA campus. It's on creating a work plan based on the VAD. Let's see. So we have a question here. I'm a current member. Where can I find the work journal template and onboarding resources? They are in what we call the general handout for this session. If you scroll up, the link is in the chat, but I'll also look for it there and drop it in one more time. And I'm looking to see if there are others. It's, you know, we had a lot of conversation here, so just want to make sure I didn't overlook anything in terms of questions.
I see a question, Andy, that says, what is the top 3 reasons VISTAs leave their service early? And I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Yeah, and off the top of my head, I don't either. But a couple of typical, and you know, I don't have the stats right at my fingertips, but often the most common is that members get an offer of paid employment. So that will lead them to leave their service early. Less common is those who have some kind of compelling medical or family emergency kind of thing that prevents them from continuing to serve. And then there are a variety of other reasons, sometimes going back to school or financial hardship. So there's a number of related reasons. But I think right at the top of the list is getting an offer of paid employment. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so a little bit of concurrence there about folks leaving early to take another job. All right, well, seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. If you do have a question, drop it in and maybe we'll be able to follow up with you afterwards. Thank you all for your participation here. But before you go, I do want to invite you to our next webinar. And that's going to be next month on the power of asking questions. It's going to be on Thursday, August 11th, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we hope to see you there. I want to take this opportunity to again thank our presenter, Jenny Moore, for such a really information-packed and resource-rich presentation. Tons of great responses to it. I think leaders are going to get a lot of out. So thank you so much, Jenny. Also, thanks to Bethany DeSablin for her instructional design assistance, as well as our production team of Jeff Bannis and Misty Thompson with LSI. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again. This concludes today's presentation. Thank you.